Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. Hope you folks are doing awesome out there tonight. Had yourselves a fantastic Sunday and a great weekend as it comes to an end. About to head off into another work week. And speaking of our work week, even into next weekend, we do have a multi to even several day severe weather risk coming up out ahead of us. So we're going to break that down. That's what this entire video is going to be about. Of course, we're going to break it down day by day. So a few days out ahead of us, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we do have some smaller severe weather risk days. And I want to break those down too, because it does lead us in, especially Tuesday and Wednesday, to our bigger events, which will likely be Thursday, Friday, and then eventually into Saturday and Sunday, and even Monday could be driven off something totally different than a Thursday and Friday. So there's a lot of things to talk about. We're going to break down what's driving everything, what's bringing these opportunities for severe weather risk areas to the table over the next several days, and what's going to be a very active end to our April. So we're going to break it down, dive into all the details, nerd out with you guys a little bit like we typically do, and break it down for you folks in great detail. So with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. And I'm pretty behind on comments on not just YouTube, but all social media platforms. I will catch up with everything probably tomorrow afternoon if work will allow me. Of course, I missed Friday, so typically when I come back on a Monday after having a 3-day weekend, it takes just about 70 to 80% of the day to catch up with my workload. So I will try to get to those comments tomorrow afternoon. So thank y'all for continuously commenting and putting the prayer request down, supporting me in that way. We are a family type atmosphere, and always tears my nerves up a little bit not being able to answer those comments the day of. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So we're going to start off by taking a look at water vapor loop. We haven't done this in the last several days. Let's making sure this is working, and it is. So let's talk about the pattern that's going on right now. So if you notice, you got some flow, more moist air symbolized in the more whiter colors, more dry air, and kind of these more doled out, almost grayer colors right in here, especially the dark gray, almost black coloring right here. So this is a ridge, kind of almost in a zonal type way, built over the southern Rockies, the southwestern U.S., kind of like this. So this is where some ridging is. We got some flow on top of the ridging, kind of going like this, and then we have our trough that's digging down like this. Now, of course, this isn't probably exactly where it's located, but in general, that's the pattern right at this moment. Now, this ridging is kind of extending out like this a little bit, and then it dramatically dips like this with this trough. But this is what's going on, and you can see it a little bit better when I show you the radar here in a second. But I am showing you all this for a reason, because all this is moving parts and moving pieces to the puzzle that we're trying to figure out with the severe weather risk coming up over the next several days, that we will have over the next several days. But there is a frontal boundary at the surface draped down here, and this is sagging into Florida. It's going to stall out, but allow for the opportunity around and just south of the boundary for severe weather down into here tomorrow morning into tomorrow afternoon and evening for South Florida and the Bahamas. You see all the whiter colors right into here? That's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, and when I show you the radar here in literally a couple seconds, it'll make a lot of sense. So let's get this all back off your screen here. Just want to talk about what's kind of going on right at this moment. And if we take a look at the radar, it makes sense, right? We got a little bit of energy up here in the form of some rain showers, maybe some higher elevation snow showers in the northern Rockies, the Cascades, but everybody down here directly influenced by this ridging in the southwest. You're not really seeing any moisture. Stable, calm air, just not a lot going on. In the middle of the country, kind of between the trough that's already dug in with a cold front that's moved in associated with the trough, it's very quiet, very stable in the middle of the country also because of that. Now, you get along the front, and just closer to being influenced by that area lower pressure, you're getting the form of rain, even some storms down here in North Florida, areas of extreme southeast Georgia. But all this rain is beginning to clear out now as this low pressure is clearing on out into the Atlantic Ocean. And we're eventually going to get this all off, like I said, the East Coast, and it's going to start to dry out for our Monday. And we're going to have a pretty dry, cooler stretch start to your work week for the eastern U.S. You're going to gradually start to warm up for the middle of the country, though. But this is what's going on right now. Now let's go on and break it down day by day. Okay, we'll kind of split this up into multiple days as we get a little bit deeper into the video, just because it gets a little bit further out and we need to fine tune some things. But Monday, Tuesday, you know, we can really zoom into these threats. Now, when I say threats, not a big deal, just a standard marginal risk down here for southern sections and southeastern sections of Florida. Level 1 out of 5. I don't expect this to get upgraded to a slight risk. But we could have some nasty storms as early as tomorrow morning down here in Florida. This is for tomorrow, starting tomorrow morning through Tuesday morning. So level 1 out of 5 risk. This is just driven off a small hail and damaging wind threat. And we will take a look at the radar for you folks down here in Florida. Listen, the HRRR model has some nasty storms firing up around the Tampa Bay area as early as like midnight, a couple hours after tonight, not tomorrow night, but tonight. So it has these storms kind of heading into the west coast of Florida, getting into the southern sections of the state. Look at these storms getting all the way down to Fort Myers down here. It's getting to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then we're getting into, daybreak tomorrow. Sun's starting to come up. We're dealing with some strong storms already. So the HRRR model kind of depicting a little bit different of a scenario than what we showed you guys this morning. But to keep this going, we could have an opportunity for more storms to develop around lunchtime around the Miami area, points north, points south, all the way down to the Florida Keys. It's very possible. Look at all these storms really now showing north of the Bahamas now. But, you know, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised one, but we get some stormy times, stormy afternoon hours and evening hours tomorrow in the Bahamas. But the HRRR model really clears out all this energy as far as Florida pretty early on. But my friends here in the Bahamas that are tuning in, if you are, let me know for sure. You guys start to get some storms for sure tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. If you see me itch my nose at all, my cats have been all over me this afternoon, this evening, as I've been kind of lazy, just chilling on the couch, and they just have taken the opportunity to sit on me. In fact, there's a cat right behind me right now. If you look at the black dots, wrong way, right there, that is one of my cats just chilling, taking a nap this evening on the bed behind me. I just didn't think there was no point in really disturbing her. She looked very comfortable. But now the NAM with tomorrow looks a little bit different. Doesn't really show those widespread strong to severe storms around Tampa or really anywhere in Florida. Just some showers. And it has them more so developing into the afternoon hours, around 5 p.m. Got some storms around the Miami area, points north. And shows most of the storm development ongoing tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. And then eventually this heads on off. So this is a little bit different of a scenario. So, the models don't agree with tomorrow. So if you live, well south of Orlando from Tampa Bay all the way to the Space Coast, not close, points south of Miami down to the Florida Keys to the Bahamas, definitely be aware of some storms tomorrow morning all the way into tomorrow night. Now we're getting into Tuesday. All right, Tuesday's not going to be a big deal, but I want to mention this. There is a marginal risk for severe weather, extremely conditional threat of severe weather. If you live right here in southwest Oklahoma and well west and northwest of Dallas, but in northern Texas here, kind of northwestern Texas, pretty much to Abilene, just about to Lubbock, almost to Amarillo, Wichita Falls, and just southwest of Oklahoma City. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. This just means there's a 5% risk at day 3 of some form of severe weather. Now, this is really more so driven off an upper trough that's digging down into the northern portion of the country. There's going to be a cold front that's going to be draped kind of horizontally right down here, kind of draped, I would say more so almost like this, if you will. Anybody south of this cold front, which will eventually probably stall out or either weaken, will have an opportunity, enough lift for some thunderstorms, enough ingredients will build into this area for some strong to severe storms. And that's really what's driving that. I always like to talk about what's really driving these little severe weather days. It helps me to learn. It helps you guys, the audience, to learn. But, the NAM does go all the way out to Tuesday afternoon, and we'll start off around 3 p.m. Not a whole lot going on, but it does show some thunderstorms developing right in that area of interest. You see these little pockets of isolated strong storms. But, just a lot of people in this area aren't going to see a drop of rain. But if you do, it could be a strong to severe storm, kind of like what happened in my neck of the woods yesterday here in upstate South Carolina. Some people didn't get a drop of rain. Some people got a what seemed like a catastrophic hailstorm. So you just never know. You never know. So take the weather serious for sure. But we'll watch for some storms in this area. Now, we start to get into day 4. Predictability too low. So what's driving the day 4 risk? Well, as of right now, I think there's going to be a marginal risk kind of in the same similar area as Tuesday. But of course, a marginal risk doesn't show up from day 4 to day 8. It does show up day 3 and then under. So day 1 to day 3. Day 4, if it's a marginal risk, it is not going to show up as anything on here. It has to be a slight risk or higher. But I really don't think the cold front will be driving this anymore. I think the ridge will be over this region, and I think that we need to watch for any little energy kind of under the ridge, inside the ridge, and there's going to be storm fuel bubbling up in this area. And I think Tuesday and Wednesday will be very similar across the southern plains. Very, very conditional threat of a severe weather. So we definitely need to watch out for that. Now we start to get into day 5, and we're going to show you kind of quite, I know I'm just verbally really showing you, telling you guys right now, but we're actually going to show you on the screen what's really driving this here in a second. We did that in this morning's video. We're going to do it again in this evening's video. But for Thursday, which is our day 5, we do have that 15% risk of severe weather stretching from just north of Abilene all the way up to almost the Kansas and Nebraska state line, including everybody in this region. Of course, we'll zoom into this area a lot more when we get a little bit closer. So what's driving this? Well, I'm about to show you. It's just a short wave trough, a little upper low that's going to swing in, create a dry line setup, and you're going to have a lot of energy for thunderstorms on, well, the right side, the east side, and it's going to be dry, stable, desert air on the other side, your typical dry line setup. Now, this same energy, this short wave trough, upper low, whatever you want to call it, area of low pressure, is going to eject across the plains. And as it does, okay, the area for concern for severe weather is going to shift eastward, northeastward also, because it's going to full-fledged eject across the plains, not like way over here. So for Friday, day 6, you're going to have a severe weather threat. And, I wouldn't be surprised here in the next day or two, this upgrades to a 30% risk before it gets inside day 3. But for now, slight risk, level 2 out of 5, 15% risk of severe weather from the Midwest to the Missouri Valley all the way down into Oklahoma, a very small section of northern Texas. So same feature driving this. We're going to come back to this here in a second, but let's focus now on pretty much Thursday and Friday's risk. So let's talk about it. So I will mention Wednesday. And let's back it up to Tuesday, actually. Tuesday, there's that upper trough up here. There's going to be a cold front draped across this region in the bottom edge of this area of low pressure. It's like there typically is, and this will cause forcing for some thunderstorms down here. Very conditional threat, though, Tuesday. Wednesday, it might not be a big deal. It's kind of like a transitional period between you're getting this lower pressure on out the way and whatever it's going to do for the northeast, which could bring some interior northeast snow, even some rains across the northeast. And then this ridge moving in, very fast moving ridge west to east. And then this area of blue right here, which is going to bring that multi-day severe weather risk. And then another one is going to dig down, which we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about behind this. Look at this ridge bubbling up. Maybe some energy under the ridge, maybe. But I don't think Wednesday is going to be a big day. We'll see. But then we get into Thursday morning. There it is. So what you're looking at here, high pressure in the oranger colors right in here. And then in the bluer colors, that's lower pressure. Lower pressure, typically associated with storminess, sometimes cooler than average temperatures, typically brings its own cold front, whether it's weak or strong. It just depends on how amplified this lower pressure is. And then you got this ridge. This is associated with more stable conditions, sinking air, and typically above average temperatures. So as we start to get into Thursday afternoon, prime heating of the day, this little short wave trough begins to take on almost a neutral to negative tilt, which means it begins to do this number right into here. Okay, which means it's tilting, it's heading that way, which means you got a strengthening storm system. Now, this area of lower pressure isn't super strong by any means, but it'll get the job done. So you got this area of lower pressure here. This is helping to even bring more ingredients, low-level moisture on the southeast and eastern side of this. This is bringing its own mid-level jet right into here. At the same time, you already had a couple day period of building of low-level moisture into this region. So therefore, you're probably going to have a dry line right into here with the ingredients for, well, let's move this a little bit closer. You're probably going to have the ingredients for severe weather kind of building, somewhere into here. Okay. Mid-level jet coming into this region, providing lift for thunderstorms, wind energy, moisture already building out the Gulf into the southern plains. There's your overlapping of ingredients right into here. Now watch as you get into Friday. Same system driving this. This upper trough fully ejects. There it is. It slows down. You're going to have a slowing down surface low. And this is where it is Friday afternoon. Same kind of deal, guys. This thing is now dug down here and is fully ejecting across the plains with a surface low associated with it somewhere. Okay, so now you got moist air probably all the way up into here. All right, now with a more strengthening area of lower pressure, strengthening surface low due to this negatively tilted trough, you probably have a more enhanced wind field going probably right over this region right here, which is overlapping the better thermodynamics. So that's why, if you go back and look at Friday, and we're going to take this off, you go back and look at Friday, the more broader severe weather risk area is, well, broader. It's larger. So that's breaking down the pattern of Thursday and Friday. Okay, and we're going to kind of come back to that here in a second. We're talking about Saturday, Sunday, potentially even Monday. So you look at that low-level moisture. Remember how I was telling you this is going to pull up that low-level moisture. So here's these surface dews in the 60s, which is really a good threshold for severe weather. 60s or higher. Now you can get severe weather with dew points in the 50s, especially in the plains. But let's just stick with the 60s here as a good measuring stick as far as severe weather. Now, Wednesday we do got a lot of moisture bubbling up in the area. Okay, dew points are in the 60s all the way into southern Oklahoma. But are you going to have any kind of lift for thunderstorms? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe we could. We very well could. Let's get this in motion again. Now we start to get into our Thursday. Remember what we just kind of talked about with that, shortwave trough, that just area of lower pressure starting to move into the southwestern U.S. and then eject across the middle of the country. Well, in this case, classic dry line setup. Okay, with a little bit of mixing. Now, the ARRR model isn't that great with dew points, but all models have their fail points. So at this point, dew points climbing into the 60s, all the way up into Kansas, 50s into Nebraska, and a pretty broad, pretty large moist sector in this entire region, dew points in the 60s. And then, you got a little bit of a dry line right into here, separating very moist air with desert dry air. Okay, so you're probably going to get that severe weather right in here. And then you move it into Friday. Look how all this moist air is rising north. This is because that area of lower pressure with the surface low associated with it is moving northeastward, ejecting across the northern portion of the country. This is pulling in a southwesterly, southerly flow up, therefore pulling all this moist air from the south, the Gulf of Mexico, etc., well, from the south to the north. So therefore, you get in the Friday afternoon prime heating of the day, you probably got a triple point right up into here, maybe as far north as like South Dakota, maybe like Minnesota. Iowa for sure will be in play with this. But look at these dew points all the way up into even sections of southwestern Minnesota, creeping into the 60s. Huge area of moist air rising right up areas of the southern plains into the Mississippi Valley, the Missouri Valley, right into this area, just right in here. Okay, severe weather will have an opportunity to be here, no doubt. And in response of all that low-level moisture, typically your higher dew points, a lot of times meaning you have higher CAPE levels. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get storms because you need lift in the atmosphere, but we're focusing in on thermodynamics right now, which is your surface dew points, temperatures, CAPE levels, lapse rates, etc. Okay, but you look at Wednesday, there is a lot of fuel in the atmosphere, but are we going to get any thunderstorms? Maybe. Very conditional. And then we get into Thursday. A lot of fuel in the atmosphere, right? You know, Cape levels over 2,500 joules per kilogram around this dry line. A lot of energy. Then we get into Friday. Sure, Cape storm energy drops off, but from what I'm about to show you, though, the kinematics, that mid-level jet, the wind flow aloft really increases. So it becomes a little bit of a low Cape, more higher shear event. But in this entire region right here, from Texas to Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, areas of Missouri, even Arkansas, all the way up to Iowa, maybe even a little bit further north, severe weather potential will certainly be there with overlapping conditions. All right, and then the next thing you'll look at for Thursday and Friday is those kinematics. So you look at that mid-level jet. There is a little bit of flow right in here embedded into the ridge. If you notice, the isobar is kind of rippling up right in here, and you do have a very weak kind of 30 knot, 35 knot mid-level flow. There could be just enough flow to get some thunderstorms going somewhere in the southern high plains, southern plains somewhere. But you see this flow way out here in the Pacific, starting to enter Baja region, Arizona, the Southwest. You know, that's your main mid-level jet associated with a shortwave trough. And sure enough, you start to move into Thursday, and then you move into Thursday afternoon. There's the exit region of this mid-level jet. These are where these storms are going to try to initiate, maybe into here. You just have to watch the nose of this jet. Plenty of flow aloft, but are we going to get these storms to actually fire? So we got to watch. Now, we are definitely going to get these storms to fire as we get into Thursday into Friday. Look, Friday morning, 70 to 80 knot mid-level jet screeching across the southern and central plains. We get into Friday afternoon, and this thing's fully negatively tilted with a pretty strong surface low. And look at all this flow surging over areas of Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and surrounding states. Plenty of lift for thunderstorms, and you're probably going to have a tornado threat definitely Friday with a lot of flow aloft, directional speed shear, all of the above. You got to watch Friday for definitely the more higher end tornado threat in this setup. So we'll go back, right? And then we don't go back. We actually have some panels pulled up for you. Well, let's continue. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's continue to talk about Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then we'll go back, and then we will look at the ingredients for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So Wednesday, there does show some storms right across Oklahoma. Not a big threat, though. We start to get into Thursday. There's those storms firing here already about midday Thursday here in Kansas, Oklahoma. So we do got the storms going associated with that shortwave trough, right? Storms firing, plenty of moist air in this area. There's definitely some better flow aloft in the mid-levels. So, watch out Oklahoma, Kansas. Look at those storms ongoing. Some more storms will likely fire up overnight. This is Thursday evening. Look at the surface flow ejecting off the Rockies. Look at these storms in Nebraska, Kansas right in here. But this is just a run of the European model. It's not going to be like a mesoscale model. It's not going to show the real detailed look of what these storms can look like. But I mean, this is in the wee hours of the morning, Friday morning. We already got just ongoing severe weather, kind of the same situation as what we saw last Monday night into Tuesday. Could be a similar setup like this coming Friday, Thursday into Friday. But we're getting into Friday morning. Look at all these widespread storms into here. Even some storms firing up down here. Look at that surface low deepening, sub 980 millibar low right over Nebraska. It's taken on that shrimp look, that kind of tail whip look that we don't like to see, symbolizing a pretty strong system. 985 millibar low Friday afternoon based off the Euro. You're probably getting some nasty storms entering Iowa. I mean, these storms down here could be pretty bad too. Almost could be like a bimodal setup with this system Friday. I mentioned that in this morning's video. Look at all these storms right in here. And remember, we talked about the ingredients. They are overlapping. And then we start to get into our Friday evening. And we could have a shot at this generating some thunderstorms also for maybe the Great Lakes region for Saturday. But I really think Saturday, a new system enters the picture, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So, speaking of Saturday, there's our first impulse of energy that brings that threat for Thursday into Friday. You see this other isolated darker area blue? This is our next upper trough. This one's much more substantial. This can in fact bring some unsettled weather, a lot of unsettled weather for the western U.S., southwestern U.S. And here it goes. We're getting into Saturday evening. This thing quickly ejects, right? Remember, it's deja vu. This thing is already tilting negative and already heading off, right? It's already ejecting. So we already know this thing is looking strong right off the dot. Saturday evening, here it comes. This is ejecting, bringing a strong southwesterly flow, bringing that moisture from the south once again. It's already probably in place. It doesn't even have an opportunity to really stabilize after what just moved through. And then sure enough, here it goes, gets fully detached, ejects. We get into Sunday. This is probably bringing some severe weather chances across the middle of the country. But you notice with the European, it weakens this system fast. Could bring severe weather because even though you just see a big area of white, there's still kind of lower pressure in here that you can't see embedded into now a ridge that's built on both sides of it, and could have a bigger system moving into the picture. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But you notice what kind of happens with the Euro, right? Okay. All right, let's back up and look at the GFS. Same situation, right? Darker blue here. This is the system we just talked about, bringing a lot of weather. Here comes this upper trough, and digging down here. Doesn't dig quite as far south, but here it comes. Different look. Like compare this look to 18Z Saturday. You look at 18Z Saturday with this. The Euro looks much more cut off. It's already starting in the beginning stages of losing kind of the influence of the main jet up here. It's beginning to get cut off. Still strong at this point, but getting cut off. Now, the GFS, much more broad, much more just put together upper trough. It does eventually start to get detached, but not after bringing what would likely be a pretty big severe weather event, most likely somewhere across the plains here on the southeastern and eastern flank of this trough, where you'll have all the ingredients building into this region overlapping. And then we get into, we get into Sunday, and this would bring a lot of unsettled weather for this. This thing fully comes down here and then ejects like this. Another surface low setup, bringing all the ingredients into this area. A big time wind field. You can see how these isobars are kind of rippling up into here. You can tell a lot of severe weather into here if something like the GFS for Sunday was to play out. But we're talking a bunch of what ifs at this point. It's like a week out, right? And then this thing tries to get juiced up again, and we get into next Monday, and totally different look, right? This is next Monday, midday, April the 29th. This is what the European is showing. You got the same energies associated right here, but it is weakened substantially. This is still kind of connected to troughing and out in the Western Canada. So totally different look here. But if we kind of just keep it on the European, right? Let's just keep it on the European, the more conservative look. We back up and look at all this stuff once again. So we just talked about Friday. So this heads on off. And look, immediately into Saturday, watch what happens down here. You can see where the cold front kind of moves in, right? It chops some of this moisture in half in Oklahoma and Texas. But look how it kind of resurges out the southeast to the northwest, back further west in Oklahoma and Texas as we're getting into Saturday, right? And then we start to get into Saturday evening. Immediately. You go from dew points in the 30s and 40s to right back to dew points Saturday afternoon, evening into the 60s into almost all of Oklahoma and a good chunk of Kansas. So this immediately resets the stage for severe weather across the central and southern plains. And then we get into Sunday. There, once again, moist air builds dew points into the 60s and 70s. Really just 60s all the way back into the Midwest. Once again, another multi-day severe weather event driven off something totally different. And, just got to watch Monday too. But the GFS, and I will show you, might as well just show it while we're here, right? The GFS with this, I hadn't even looked at this, so it's going to be new to me too. The GFS with, Saturday and Sunday, here it comes, and there it is. Goodness. You look at the GFS on Saturday, look at these dews into the 70s all the way up into Missouri. dew points into the 60s all the way up into the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. I mean, that's a totally different look than the European. Okay. And then we start to move into our Sunday. I mean, goodness, Sunday afternoon, folks, I think this is way overdone, right? This is why I always show you the European more. But this is just a crazy look, for Sunday afternoon on the GFS. Shows dew points into the 60s deep. I mean, it shows a dew point of 67 into Green Bay in April. I mean, this is insane. So, I mean, shows just a ridiculous dry line set up all the way into Iowa. So, it's hard for me to believe that. It really is. But you go back and look at the European, same thing, Cape levels, and watch how this becomes a much bigger deal as we get into Saturday and Sunday. Okay, I mean, look, Saturday, you already got storm energy rebuilding into Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, you got Cape levels over 3,000 joules per kilogram in west central Texas on the European for Saturday morning. And then, we start to get into Saturday afternoon. Look at all this energy across the southern central plains extending. I mean, you got energy up here too. So, Saturday could be, one of those weird setups where you're still getting a storm opportunity for the departing the departing energy from Thursday and Friday's event. And then you got kind of just, a reamped air mass down here for Saturday and Sunday's event from this other energy that's diving down to the western U.S. And then we get into Sunday, and, it looks like the energy's getting ate up. But, I mean, Sunday could be a big day too, guys. And so, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild figuring this out. You look at the kinematics too, and we start to get into Saturday. And sure enough, I mean, Saturday still shows some lift for some thunderstorms in the Great Lakes region. But, you really look at Saturday down here. Here's this upper trough digging down. Not as strong as the GFS, but shows a lot of wind flow aloft. Favorable wind pattern for severe weather. Right here into the central and southern plains once again. Overlapping conditions with moist air right in here. And then, of course, you start to get into Sunday. And here it is with that weakening low GFS difference. But a massive corridor stretching from Texas all the way to Wisconsin of this mid-level jet. Favorable wind flow law for lift and wind, damaging winds, things like that. Severe ingredients. Just think of the overlapping ingredients in this area. You got favorable dew points, favorable mid-level flow. When you get a little bit closer, we'll look at that low-level flow, the low-level jet. But, you're going to have an opportunity for thunderstorms in this region. So, kind of a 1-2 punch, guys. I mean, this is a big deal coming up, I really do think. And, you do look at Saturday, right? You already got thunderstorms. Another surface low. One departing, right, from Thursday and Friday. Another one developing at the flank of this upper trough. And look at these storms already midday Saturday forming. Look at these storms moving into Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. You got storms firing up at the bottom flank of this surface low that's departing here in the Great Lakes region. 992 millibar low here in the middle of the country. Look at this just ejecting quick. I mean, getting into next Sunday morning, a lot of thunderstorms ongoing. Yeah, it could be a lot coming up, guys. There's going to be a lot to figure out. This would be a good learning lesson, too, me just re-explaining it over and over again. But 999, much lower than the GFS, by the way. 999 millibar low showing up next Sunday, around this time, next Sunday, with risk of thunderstorms. And it makes sense. I mean, we just talked about this, right? There's that flow, Sunday evening. See all this? Kinematic flow, and then you look at all the thunderstorms in that same area. So there's a good kind of 1-2 comparison right there. So hope that makes sense. You move this into your Monday, you're going to probably have some sort of severe weather threat too. So I felt like I explained that pretty well tonight. Some nights I struggle a little bit more than others. But I hope that makes sense, guys, explaining lower and higher pressure. But we got some active times ahead. We do. God bless all y'all. You have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.